And now I invite our next speaker, Kristin Weitzel, founder of Warrior Woman Mode Nutrition plus Optimal Wellness. Breathe into better, using the breath to shift body, brain, and being. Kristin?
Thank you. Hello. I'm so excited to be here. I'm so thankful for Julia and Mick working so hard to put this together because it takes a lot of work behind the scenes, and it's a wonderful thing. I'm going to give up this microphone right here because it's just for you guys in this room, and this is for our TV friends. And so if my voice gets too low, please just let me know, but I'd much rather project today's little conversation. So again, my name is Kristin Weitzel. We're going to talk about breathing ourselves into better today. I feel like I should stand up here and say, I'm Kristin Weitzel. I'm on day 8 of my cycle. And I probably should be in the gym right now using this estrogen to my advantage. So I'm not exclusively going to talk about women. Am I in my little box? Am I okay? Okay. I'm not exclusively going to talk about women, but I am going to mention some things because we've been on this little exciting train of talking about the female cycle and how it affects us. And there is a strong correlation to how we use breath and how we breathe as women to the way our hormones fluctuate that actually makes us breathe worse. So we will talk about that in a few slides down the road. The first thing I'm going to ask you to do, whether you're watching this as a video or whether you're in this room, is I'm going to ask you to spend 3 to 5 minutes with me right now breathing. And I want to make it easy. And I want to try to have you check in with where you are right now in space and have you sit comfortably, uncross your legs. If it's comfortable for you, close your eyes. Notice where your mind goes. Are you annoyed that I'm going to make you breathe for 3 minutes? Are you excited to see the presentation? Are you off with your friends and family somewhere else? And just hang in that space. The object of the little breathing game we're going to play right now is to create a bit of air hunger. At any moment, if you're feeling like it's an uncomfortable thing that's happening in your body, you're welcome to breathe any way you want, but I'd like you to do this exercise with your lips touching each other and just breathing through your nose. So take one moment to settle in, feel your feet on the ground, unclench your jaw, and start breathing at a normal pace that feels comfortable and casual through your nose. There is power in silence in the room. There is power in this pause that you're taking right now. And as we breathe smaller and smaller over the next couple minutes, it's perfectly okay for you to feel a small level of something we call air hunger. So firstly, we'll take an inhale through our nose. Just keep breathing normally right now and listen to some instruction, but we'll take an inhale through our nose and we're going to fill our entire body up. When you take that inhale through your nose, I want you to expand the belly. We want to make pot bellies cool again. We're going to expand from the belly into the midsection of the body, into the chest, filling the lungs to 100%. That is our first breath. That is the biggest breath we will take over the next 90 seconds to 2 minutes. So breath number 1 right now, inhale, biggest breath of the day, in through the nose. Expand to the side. Can you feel your back in the back of the chair? Like a barrel, expand to the top, to the top, to the top, to the top. When you get there, all the way full, then slowly exhale through the nose. And that was your biggest breath of the next 90 seconds to 2 minutes. Now you're going to take it to about 80% of that. So breathing in on your own count of 4. Just breathing into 80%. Don't fill up all the way, just to 80%. And when you get there, just hold it for 1 quick second. And lower. Exhale. Let it go. Where's your mind? Where's your state? See if you can relax just a little bit more. And now on the next inhale, bring yourself to 50% full. So it may or may not be a 4 count. You're filling yourself halfway up. When you get to that place, take a moment and then exhale. And in between these shifts in breath, if you need to breathe a little bit more deeply, you can. Staying at that 50% ratio, you're just breathing in and out to a 50% level, no more than that. You have plenty of oxygen there. And when you take your next inhale, I want you to fill yourself just 25%. Just 25%. Your shoulders should be relaxed. Your chest should be open, calm, and down. You should try to breathe just a little into the belly. And now we shift into what I like to call the secret breath. So you're leaning back in your chair. You are relaxed. The less tension, the less oxygen you burn. So you are relaxed, and the next rest of the breaths you will take will be secret, will be less than 25%, will be 10 to 15% of your air. So if someone walked in the room, they might think that you were peacefully sleeping. Or maybe they couldn't see you breathing. And see if you can relax and take those small breaths and feel the subtlety of wanting to take a deeper breath, and know that that deeper breath will come in about 15 seconds. One last time, reduce that breath down to the smallest possible breath you can. Swallow if you need. In 5, we're going to take a big deep inhale together. 3, 2, 1. Inhale big as you need to inhale, through your mouth, through your nose, whatever feels good. And then before you open your eyes, just do a quick scan. What was your state before you started breathing? Like this. What went through your mind as you did? And how do you feel now? What's your state? Are you in less judgment? Are you in more? Are you excited? Are you de-excited? And then you can open your eyes. It's so fun to watch you guys breathe. It really is. It's like, you know, normally if people are like lying down on the ground and it's all crazy, but it's fun to watch you breathe while this is happening, because there are shifts that happen in your face. There's like joy that will come across. And also, for you, it's very specific, right? For you, some kind of breathing technique might make you feel super excited, and another might make you feel de-excited. And while there are what I hesitate to call standards in breathing, when it comes to the correlation of your nervous system, for everybody, different breathing styles are going to feel different in different moments, in different parts of our cycle, in different parts of our day, and under different stress conditions. Yeah? Does anybody want to do like a quick 1-second share of like some differential they felt? Did you feel what this thing is that's air hunger? Did you feel this desire to breathe more? Thinking, if I can just get some more air, then I will have more oxygen maybe, or feel better maybe. And it's like keeping ourselves at that state is an important place to be. I'm going to explain and talk a little bit about why that actually oxygenates your system more. And it is a riff on an exercise I will talk about later. And the good news is you already know how to do it because we just did it together. And that's the breathe light to breathe right exercise. This is a riff off of an Oxygen Advantage Patrick McEwen exercise, and it is something that we can do in 3 to 5 minutes over the course of our day to shift the way we breathe the rest of our day, to shift the way we breathe when we're sleeping. And, I get to change slides myself. Great. Breathwork looks like a lot of things, right? We saw Pavel this morning do amazing breathwork, and sometimes you have time to like get real juicy like that. Like, and if you haven't met him, I'm going to call you out right now. But if you haven't met him, you can feel when you meet him, and we don't even know each other well, so you're not a plant for this conversation. But you can feel when you meet him, and when you work with him, and when you dance with him in breath, that he's a breather, that he stands in his own 2 feet, that he really like breathes with you, that he's open emotionally, that he will like take you in and listen and give back. And I think more of that, please, just by the way. But for people you're working with in the world who are breathers, who are sharing the art of breath, and there are so many, you will notice, it's like good meditators, you will notice that they've learned how to de-stress themselves enough and often that they can really relate and live in the now and be in the world. And I say this because 2.5 years ago, I laid on a floor in Amsterdam thinking, I'm a yoga teacher. I know how to breathe. I teach people how to nasal breathe all the time. I can get people into crazy upside down poses. My breath is fine. Right? Sometimes we do this in the biohacking world, but I thought my breath is fine. And I had Casper Vandermeulen, so he's Casper's Focus on Instagram, and he is a big mentor of mine, lay me down on a floor and say, let's just watch Kristin breathe, and made me breathe in all these ways while 18 people in the room watched me breathe for half an hour. And by the end of the half an hour, I was in tears. I was totally in a little bit of freeze mode, and I didn't understand what was happening with my breath, nor where I should breathe or what I should be doing. And I was like, how can I sort of came out of that circle of people and sat up and realized, how can I, like 18 people are staring at me, there's a level of stress here, something's happening here, there's a level of emotional connection I'm missing here, understanding or thinking that this group of people around me is, like this harkens back a little bit to the conversations that happened on the stage yesterday, where there's this group of people around me that like, I think maybe are they on my team or are they against me, or how is this working, or they're all judging me, and really understanding in that moment that I needed to learn how to shift my breath in order to shift my state, in order to shift the way that I communicate with people, and in order to feel like more wholly myself. And I'm a pretty practical person, and I don't necessarily look at myself as like woo-woo, but that moment changed my life in understanding how I can change and use my breath. And that moment was a big catalyst for me really weaving breathwork into the work that I do. So I coach women in small groups and many, many women one-on-one, and many of the avenues around biohacking we've talked about these last 2 days. And I get to touch on all these wonderful experts around the room that you've seen speak here to say, I've aggregated this. I'm helping this woman. We're stuck. Mindy, what do I do? Molly, what do I do? But the one thing that consistently stands out as an issue we all need to work on, every single one of us, I watched this room breathe for the last couple days. We're pretty good at it. But the issue that exists is that we need to learn how to breathe better, because it is free, and it is, in my opinion, the #1 thing that we can do and capitalize on every single day really easily, if we have a little bit of personal responsibility, to make ourselves feel better. So these are all the things where people are like, breathing, it can look like a lot of things. So the last thing I want to say is, this is like, breathing can be like dating. You may be like, this is my jam. Totally feel like I can relate to this. You may look at something else on the screen and say, that's what I relate to. I urge you to explore lots of different styles of breath work and find the one that speaks to you. Because you don't have to be sitting in the ashen grounds with the monks in India to be doing good breath work. You can be doing it with your kids at home at night, laying down on the floor. You can have the TV on in the background. You can do it 19 different ways. So I want to just make sure you feel like the relationship to breathing can be so many things. This way. Every so often I'll do a little dance break, and then everyone can lighten up. So, it goes by many names. There's so many people. This is for sure not an extensive list, but I think this is a good slide if you're like, I'm not really familiar with all the different breathing techniques and people out there. Might be a good slide to snap a photo of. All different styles of people doing all different styles of breathing, and that means transcendental, changing your life, taking you on a total trip without anything that is an external substance being put in your body, using breath work to shift your state, using breath work to shift your fitness, using breath work to shift your mind, to heal micro traumas, to do so many different things. So love up on these people, because there's incredible amounts of information and change you can create in the body. Here's the 5 things I'm going to touch on. 5 ways to biohack your health into breath. Nasal breathing, amazing. You just did a little bit of nasal breathing with me. We'll talk about why that's important. Daily breathwork exercises, 3 minutes. This is what I say to clients. I have a week I focus on nasal breathing with the women I work with. They all look at me, not all, a lot of them look at me on the Zoom screen or in person like I'm crazy that I'm about to tell them to do a nasal breathing exercise every single day to help their sleep, to help their sleep apnea, to help people who come to me with sleep apnea and asthmatic conditions are actually more open to it because they're like, I need to fix something that's broken. Other women come to me with high levels of anxiety or stress, hi, thank you, COVID, and they look at me like I'm crazy when I give them nasal breathing exercises to do for a week as their primary focus of week number 1. And they always come back at the end of the week and say, holy shit, I cannot believe I was breathing through my nose, I was actually aware, I slept better, and I was calmer. I had a TV interview, I did great, whatever the thing is. So nasal breathing is super important. We'll talk about why. And daily nasal breathing, breathwork exercises, 3 to 5 minutes. If you have more time, great. If you don't, just get it in. Exposure therapy. This is not a presentation about ice baths. I want to get in an ice bath every time a man gets in an ice bath. I love an ice bath. But I'm going to talk about how we can utilize stress and adaptation to help us breathe better. Because I used to go to firearms training school. That's a crazy thing to say at a biohacking conference, but I went. And what happens is you go and you learn to shoot a firearm, and you're like, okay, I'm getting good at it, 2, 3 days. And on day number 4, a guy straps himself, like a big military dude, strapped himself to the back of my back with a carabiner, put me in a highly intense situation with doors I had to kick open and things flipping around, and gave me that very same gun. And you know what my performance percentage was? It was like 36% good, like 36% as good as the 100% day. So we lose all of that, right? We're going to perform half as well. We're going to breathe half as well under stress. And so putting ourselves into stress, super important. Fitness optimization. How can we do crazy things in the gym to make ourselves breathe better, to get a better capability for everything that goes on in the fitness world, but also so that we can breathe, create more cardiovascular capacity, and get stronger faster. And then the last thing, I'll talk about tools. Dance break. Mouths are for eating, noses are for breathing. If you listen to nothing else that I say in this entire presentation, it's a good photo, right? If you listen to nothing else and do nothing else from this entire presentation, taking your awareness to making sure you're breathing through your nose and shutting your mouth to save your life 90% of the day, because we have to talk, we're going to work out, we're going to get excited, we're going to have sex. There's times that we have to open our mouth. But 90% of the rest of the day, if we're nasal breathing, you're going to shift your state. You're going to keep your nervous system in a parasympathetic mode, so you are more chill, more socialized, so your body feels the number one thing it needs to feel in order to do more amazing things with the dreams that you have, and that is you need to feel safe. And in order for your body to feel safe, we have to tell ourselves and our nervous system we are safe, and we can do that with the breath. We can use 100 other biohacking tools as well, but let's start with the one that's the baseline breathing technique. The nose knows the ways to optimal health. Why do we use the nose? When we breathe in our mouth, we don't make nitric oxide. You saw Amy Killen's talk about sexual prowess and nitric oxide and how we need to make sure we have enough of that in our body. It's a vasodilator. Fitness can build nitric oxide. Food can. But nasal breathing can as well, because the nitric oxide is made in our sinus cavity. So when we breathe through our nose, we get nitric oxide built. We get filtration of the air. The air conditioner of our body works, so it's like the perfect temperature is created to be able to have us breathe that kind of air in. And it's naturally building us to parasympathetic nervous system activation. So nasal breathing is king or queen. Diaphragm control and lung capacity. So I want to touch on this a little bit quickly because people are breathing poorly. If you watch, I want to say when you go to the airport next time, but hopefully that's soon, watch people walking around in the world, how they're breathing, and look at their state. It's harder with masks when you see people wearing masks, but if you can see a group of people walking around and we're walking on our phone and we're like, there's a different energy that comes with how you're functioning and how you're breathing and what you're doing in the moment. So Look at other people, and we are nervous systems walking around in space, and you can see it if you watch the way that people are holding their structure in their body and how they're breathing. Diaphragmatic breathing is the thing that we need to focus on when we're nasal breathing, and that's a lot about that making pot bellies cool again. We're breathing in our nose, our bellies expand. We talk about 3-part breath. Lots of us are reverse breathing. It happens all the time. Inhale, inhale. We're trying to get our bellies to expand and also to think of ourselves as a barrel when we breathe. And that's biomechanically the very best way for us to do it. There are all different kinds of styles and cadences of breathing that you can use and shift your body intentionally in other ways. But when we're breathing naturally, we want to breathe down and deep into that belly. I'm standing here. Gravity has most of the blood pooled in the bottom of my lungs. When I'm breathing, there's a gas exchange that happens, and the blood is in the bottom of my lungs. So if I breathe in my nose, I breathe more deeply into the bottom of my lungs. More gas exchange, more oxygenation. So that's a lot of the other reason that we want to make sure we're getting into that diaphragmatic breath. Yes, we'll go to the next slide. 5 to 6 breaths a minute is optimal. That's like a little controversial because it depends on what you're doing, but if we're at rest, just taking 5 breaths over a course of a minute, easy in and out, is where our nervous system and our body typically wants to live. This is a fabulous chart. I'm not going to go crazy on it, but I put it up here. The last science class I took was in 7th grade, okay? Good luck to me being a biohacker. This chart comes from a gentleman whose name is Armando Hasurigan, and he's on my social, and I can absolutely tell you how to spell that. But he puts all of this information out for free. If there's anything you're trying to learn about anatomy and physiology, this is the guy. And he's very clear about the way he sort of dissects and educates topics to make them very simple. So I wanted to just talk a little bit about this. I just talked about breathing mechanics and this 3-part breath. We all know that our lungs kind of like end up here, but when we expand our diaphragm, our bellies come out, right? So our lungs aren't down in our bellies. It's not breathe into the belly is a tactile cue, but we're not really breathing into our bellies. We are using that 3-part breath. We are using breathing in correlation with the autonomic nervous system to state shift ourselves. So the more comfortable we feel, the more calm we are, the less we're living in this heightened state. Sometimes the heightened state of the sympathetic nervous system gets vilified. We need it, right? A car, it's like driving down the road really fast and we got to dodge out of the way. We're at the gym and we have to pick up a super heavy weight. We are doing things sometimes with our sympathetic nervous system that are really important. But because we live in the society we live in today, our nervous system state, generally speaking, has microstressors and bells and whistles and all these things happening to us. So defaulting to a de-stressing type of breath work is super helpful for your baseline, right? Then you get to layer in the fun stuff. Just like food. If you're going to biohack your whole life but still go to McDonald's every day, we got to probably stop the McDonald's piece before we go biohack the rest of our lives. CO2 tolerance, what is it? CO2 tolerance is a little bit around what we discovered when we explored that little breathing exercise. Feeling air hunger is really CO2 rising in your body. And so how tolerant are you, or that trigger is in you, is like how tolerant you are. And it can be directly correlated in the research to emotional response, like how quick your emotional reaction is going to be, and not necessarily in a good way. So understanding what your CO2 tolerance is important. It is what divers use to create their apnea tables, free divers. So that's where that came from, and that's why there's a decent amount of study and reference around it. And what we just did has something to do with that CO2 tolerance. So as you practice that every day, that breathe light to breathe right, you're building your tolerance to carbon dioxide. Why is that important? It's important because of this thing that correlates to the Bohr effect, which is where you see the CO2 tissue and O2 little bloodstream on the bottom of this chart. This is the science that's important because what we learned about breathing or what we think about breathing is not necessarily true. We think, I need more oxygen, I'm going to take in more air. You can take in more air and sort of get more oxygen in you, but in order to get the oxygen in your tissues, in your muscles, and in your cells, you have to have this really important thing called carbon dioxide. So did I leave it in here? Oh, the tissue nightclub, the oxygen club goers, and DJ carbon dioxide. For any scientists who are watching this or in the room, this is a massive oversimplification. But what's basically happening is the red blood cells are like the Ubers that are like driving around with carbon dioxide, with oxygen in them, being like, yo, this is awesome. Hemoglobin, red blood cells, oxygen molecules are there. We're driving around looking for an amazing nightclub, right? We're looking for the tissue nightclub, the cell nightclub, the muscle nightclub. When's it going to go off where we want to get out of this car and go to the nightclub? Shit, we just heard DJ carbon dioxide. He is dropping some tunes. We're getting out, we're getting in those tissues, and we're going to go party. Like, yes, it's a 12-year-old example, but when I have people come to me, we don't all have science in our background, and for me, it's really helped me understand that it's like, oh, in order to have this catalyst of oxygen getting into my tissues, which is the number one thing I care about, is getting it into my cells, I have to have carbon dioxide. If I hold my breath, or if I learn to have more carbon dioxide tolerance, if I tape my mouth at night, if I do it during fitness, I can actually oxygenate my body better. I can do a close to max effort, and I can get more oxygen in my system, and that is completely, maybe not for everyone, but for most people, that is completely counterintuitive to what we think happens when we breathe. So physiologically, super exciting. Hope it's as exciting for you as it is for me. What's the next steps to breathe better and more efficiently? Let's go through the last couple of slides. Consistency beats intensity 10 out of 10 times. When is that not true in life? If you do an amazing breathwork exploration 1 day a year versus 300 days of a year, where are you going to get the most benefit? Same with meditation, same with neurofeedback, same with so many things. So let's be consistent about breathing, even if it's in small increments. It doesn't have to be a big deal, and it could just be you walking around being like, I'm just going to pay attention to breathing through my nose today. My kids are driving me crazy. I have to have a big business meeting, and I'm about to blow up because things just hit the fan at the office. How can I nasal breathe through this? BLTBR is breathe light to breathe right. I have a recommendation for a book. Patrick McEwen's new book is coming out. It's called The Breathing Cure. It's called The Breathing Cure, and it has 2 chapters on breathing amazingly well as women and how it correlates to where we have challenges because of our hormone cycles during our reproductive years. And it has 1 chapter for how to have the most amazing orgasm ever by using your breath while you're doing the things you do to have that orgasm. Whatever those are. You saw Amy Killen, you know. Gentle, slow, minimal breathing. We did it together. So this is a little bit of a direction. I also have an audio, so if you feel like I just want to listen to Kristin's voice in my ear telling me what to do, super happy, DM me. I'll send you the audio for free. You can keep it or make fun of it or do anything you want with it, and it will just guide you through that so that you learn it enough to do on your own. And remembering that biohacking breath is an N=1 experiment as well. Something that you might love, you may not. And it works only if we discover what that is for ourselves. So experiment, get weird, see how it feels. Vary your practices from woo-woo to hard coach science. I've had people, I've done breath work, yoga world, and they're like, you're too woo-woo. I've had people where I'm coaching at a CrossFit gym, and they're like, this is too coachy. So find what works for you, find what you love. Oh, I went the wrong way. Breath and exposure. How many of you guys have put yourself in really, 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 really cold water or ice? Amazing. So you know the deal with this, right, is like impose a lot of stress that's going to give me longevity benefits, and then I'm going to learn and teach my body how to breathe really well in that, like it's a warm bubble bath. So the goal of the game is like exploring what it feels like to be in intense stress. So when you're in traffic or office, or that example I gave you of the handgun range is happening, something comes at you unexpectedly, that you can be just like Pavel, chill, in the moment, making good decisions, and feeling less repercussions from performing less well. When you get out of the ice, if you're doing this, you know what happens. You have this beautiful parasympathetic rebound, and you feel like you've just jumped out of a plane, and it's wildly incredible. But getting into the ice, to me, is the thing, maybe not every day, is the thing that taught me how to re-regulate my breathing and retrain my body to breathe 3 parts correctly, because I'm an A-type personality, because I felt like I had to have something where it was an implied stressor that hit me really hard so I could make it figure-outable how I could breathe under those conditions. And I always put something in about saunas. Rhonda Patrick has a lot of stuff about sauna and longevity and so many benefits for years and years of research. Ice baths have less research because there are so many variables of temperature and time and who's doing it and all of that. But I did a 34-day experiment where I put myself in the ice 6 to 10 minutes, depending on the temperature, every single day for that many days. Great point you made. Women shouldn't be doing it every day. My hormones went a little wonky. But I did learn about breathing. I did learn, like that's the learning, right? We got to fail so we can succeed. But putting yourself into a space where you have some kind of exposure to re-regulate your breath and understand how to stay calm under stress is a super helpful way to do it. If you are like Kristin, I don't have time to get like ice and bags and wear and a trough from my local feed store and all of that. Like a cold shower works just fine. It's a really nice practice to just be like, how can I turn the water cold as possible? 3 minutes in and out, starting on cold if you can do it. Always pros end on cold. We want to end on cold. So you have the capacity. Most of us have a shower that we can go utilize to try this out. And the thing it also builds is like, it really builds resiliency, right? This minimum effective dose, high level instantaneous, no hesitation, and we learn how to adapt. So breathing in here is a very big, or a cold shower, or a sauna, is a very big way that you can utilize a stressor that's giving you other longevity benefits and almost stacking your hacks. Cool. Who's taped their mouth when they're exercising? So this is a beautiful, I will preface it by saying, you should talk to your doctor if you have any medical conditions or things going on. If you're pregnant, you probably don't want to like try this out in those moments, and just know what you're doing when you walk into it. Also, you can do it without taping your mouth, but quite often we cheat. So I run a course at a gym in Venice, and we do, this is one of the girls from the course last week, we do a lot of tape mouth exercise components, and that's because we are learning how to breathe better nasally. We are learning how to have more CO2 tolerance. We are trying to create an adaptation where we understand how to manage our fatigue and our recovery. Because when I think about the fitness pyramid, and I talked about this last year, the baseline, sleep is important. Sleep is a skill. But the baseline that we need to know is like, you are only as fit as what you can recover from. So you have to recover. Like you have to recover. And sleep is part of that, but that should be our foundational baseline, and breathing helps with that. It is a very big way we can set ourselves up to win. We finish that big, hard-ass training, weights, which everybody should be lifting, and we put our feet up on the wall, and for 3 minutes, we nasal breathe. Just counts of 4, box breath, simple. And you're telling your nervous system, you just crushed that, but right now, you're good. You're safe. You finished crushing that workout. You can start recovering right now. Versus waiting for an hour and a half and driving home in traffic and sweating it out and all that. You can get your nervous system to begin the recovery process ASAP with a little post-workout recovery breathing. If you want to really trial this out, the thing that I think is cool, because you're going to be working out hard sometimes and need mouth breathing, right? You're going to go through the gears. You're going to be like, nasal breathing's fine. Now it's getting harder. Now I'm going nose and mouth, then I'm going mouth-mouth, right? People at the end of a race, they're breathing through their mouths. That's fine. I'm not saying you shouldn't be using your mouth sometimes, but I want you to take one workout you love that has a component of a little bit of cardio and a little bit of strength, and I want you to do it on a Monday, whatever day of the week, and I want you to do it with no tape, however you would normally do it. And then take a rest day, and then do the same workout 2 or 3 days later, a day or 2 later, and then tape your mouth. And notice exactly at the moment you finish the workout how you feel. Maybe you went a little less hard because it was harder to take in some air. Maybe things shifted a little and you were like 85% of your max. But when you hit the end of that, that workout's going to feel like, okay, I'm done with my workout, awesome. Whereas the first workout may feel like you're up against the wall. So using this for athletic benefits. And the last thing I want to mention is stacking your hacks, because we can always just breathe with the tools that we have in our own body. But here are things that I like to add into the mix. Mouth tape for fitness, mouth tape for sleep. I know that Sean's going to talk about that later, but it is not crazy if it's safe and applicable for you to mouth tape at night your asleep. I've worked with people who have terrible asthma and sleep apnea and can get them to cut their number in half off the CPAP or APAP machine in 3 months by reconfiguring the way they breathe and by understanding what they can do during the course of the day and by layering in Breathe Light to Breathe Right and all of these exercises. It is amazing that we have technology to help us sleep and correct issues that could be dangerous to our life. But it is also insane to me that we are not using the number one thing we should be using. As I watch it happen and I say, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening again and again and again and again. People get awareness around breath and they shift. You can get off your machine, like maybe not 100%, depending on your case, but you can shift the asthma and you can shift the sleep in an incredible way. And we're dealing with so many sleep issues in the world, and breathing really, really can help. Breather Fit, so mouth tape. Breather Fit, it's a respiratory muscle training device. You use it for your mouth. You're getting your lungs stronger, just like you would get your biceps stronger doing those sexy bicep curls. And you use that device every other day, few minutes, super easy, comes with an app. I'm like not affiliated with them, but I love it just because it's, especially if you're doing lots of fitness, it's really great to train your respiratory muscles to do that. And the Flex Beam. So I'm a super big Flex Beam nerd, and now I work with them because I nerded out with their device so much because it works like a breather belt. It's an elastic strap. It straps onto you. You charge it. You don't have to have it plugged in while you're using it. I can do it while I train. I'm the girl driving in the purple Jeep at 5:30 in the morning in LA that looks like it's got a disco inside because the red lights are glowing because it's like on my shoulder or it's around my waist. And so I utilize it tactilely to get feedback. And at the same time, what am I doing? I'm stacking red light therapy. So exciting. The last quick thing I'm going to talk about, because I know we're almost at time, is women in breathing. I have a social post on my Instagram handle, which is Warrior Woman Mode. It is 5 slides long. That is a summarization of what goes on with women in breathing. But there are 2 important things that I think I want to touch on quickly, which are women with pelvic floor issues. There are things that happen to our bodies, pregnancy and different times of life and stages of our training and our age and things that we're doing, where we are 50% more likely to have pelvic floor issues. And when we have pelvic floor issues, we don't do this really good job of breathing into our bellies and breathing into our lower body because quite frankly, we don't feel as safe down there. We're sort of holding things in or together or whatever's happening. And we do a lot more hyperventilated breathing, right? Chest breathing. That is something that we need to work within like women's health industry as well to be able to correlate and fix. But knowing that we suffer more from overbreathing in that is a piece of the puzzle of women and breathing and hyperventilation. And the cycle piece, the hormone piece that Patrick has pulled together a lot of research and studies around is that a lot of the reason that we see so much PMS is based on the way that our hormones are fluctuating, that we have day 10 to 22, and then also in the luteal phase, we have 25% less capacity to uptake oxygen because we're getting less CO2 because of how our hormones work in our body. So we tend to overbreathe, and then we're overbreathing, and then we're more pain sensitive, and then things are going on, and then we're getting PMS, and then the key factors in the research, the way you look at it, PMS is a thing for some women, of course, but that there's a direct correlation to the baseline causes of PMS coming from hyperventilated breathing during that phase of the cycle. And that is not my work. That is like Patrick's work for years. He sent me TMJ studies 2 years ago, and I was like, I can't read these. I don't understand what's happening. You're telling me it's 25% less capacity to breathe? That means when I'm in the gym for 10 days a month, I can't breathe as well? How is that going to affect my fitness and my state and how I feel? And that's a really important thing for females to start to understand. So I sing the praises of his book because I've learned a lot through that process of becoming an advanced instructor with him and really starting to look at the research and see how different we really are. That's all I have to say to you about breathing today. Thank Thanks for listening. And I'm here.
Yes, that was awesome. Quick question about the respiratory trainers. So you mentioned Breather Fit, and there's a few different on the market. Is there something we need to look for when there's a price range, from like $50 to $300 or more? Are there things that we're understanding about what the trainers can do versus ourselves?
Yeah. So the primary thing is like, let's use our bodies first and figure it out with our bodies. Like the nasal breathing thing is important, and we want to regulate ourselves and our nervous system with that, right? We just will get healthier. There's a lot of books out there, like Nestor's book that was up there, that talks about why nasal breathing is the king and the queen of how we breathe. But from a respiratory muscle trainer, the breather, there are a lot out there, but like you should be spending under $50. And there are a couple different kinds. There'll be one that's like the easy one, and sometimes that's for like asthmatics or people with sleep disorders. And then there's like always one that's a little more like athletic focused. And quite often my recommendation is like, just buy the harder one and set it lower, and just like do your best with it, unless you have like some medical reason that you'd have to have the one that's a little bit more tame. But it's an easy tool to have around. Your friends will be thinking you're smoking a weed pipe because it looks like that. But you just do some respiratory training mouth-wise, and it's really good for like lung capacity and building strength there and building capability to just breathe better, especially for workouts.
Yes.
So you mentioned CO2 tolerance. Do you have a good tool to measure CO2 tolerance, or one that you recommend?
This is a great question, because there is no perfect tool, because there is a lot of subjectivity to it. But there are two things out there that you can do, and they're easy to look up online. The first thing is take your BOLT score. And know also what I'm about to tell you, these are both like novel, right? So like if you take it once, you're like, that's my BOLT score. It's like not your BOLT score forever. You need to kind of take it pretty consistently over a week or two to see where you average out. So taking your BOLT score is something where you like inhale, exhale calmly, and then you like start your phone, and the number of seconds you go is what your BOLT score is. And then there's like different correlations about what's good and what's bad. Don't look at those. Just know your BOLT score and play with it. So the BOLT score test I like, but for me, I look at the number and I start to panic. I'm going to hold it longer. So you got to make it not this challenge. You just have to be like, cool, it is what it is. There's no good and there's no bad. So BOLT score, and then CO2 tolerance test. Brian McKenzie, who's like, yo, sometimes you just got to like breathe the way you need. Like he's very like that. They like do a CO2 tolerance test, which is a few breaths before and a similar type of thing, but it's a slow, long exhale. And then you count how long it takes you to exhale without any pauses or breaks. So those are the two things. Those are the most like famous of them, and there's a little bit of like research around that and what works, but it's a bit subjective. Yeah, you're welcome.
More questions? Good.
Okay, so I have a partner who is a mouth breather, but only in the evening when he's really tired. Could you explain why that may be, other than needing to build a CO2 tolerance?
It's just like it's so yes and or no and it's so different for everyone. Like some of it's socialized, some of it is like I just stood in front of you as a person who teaches breathing to people, and I was like, I have to make sure it fits in time, and I'm just going to talk out of my mouth this whole time. I mean, I have no other option, right, but to mouth breathe like crazy, and I can feel in my own body, even when I'm up here saying to you, breathe nasally. How's everything doing? I can feel there's different levels of tension and things going on in my body that are not, I'm not mirroring you. It's why I like to get you to close your eyes. But so he's going to have different things in his life, from emotional states to microtrauma. I use the word microtrauma a lot, but to any kind of trauma, to things that are happening with his phone. He won't have to worry about his cycle making him more pain sensitive, but there's like other things that are going to cause that, and a lot of that is like using positive psychology. Like there could be a medical thing too, that's like a sleep apnea condition, but these conditions are generally, they are reversible. And so maybe taping his mouth would be a helpful tool. I don't want to suggest. Yeah?
What about like a deviated septum?
Excuse me?
She wants you officially on the mic.
Hi, thank
Hi.
you so much. What about having a deviated septum where you're really just getting 75% of the oxygen when you're breathing through your nose?
Yeah.
Do you recommend maybe those strips?
Breathe right strips.
at
People-
night
pe-
or during the day when I'm just at home? Or
The Breathe Right strips are great. People will use them a lot as a gateway, for sure. Cool fun fact is that your nose has erectile tissue, the same erectile tissue that Amy Killen talked about yesterday in the tip of it. So yes, deviated septum can cause issues there. Also, sometimes we just get blocked in one side of the nose or the other. I will tell you that the first year I started nasal breathing on spin bikes and in fitness class, and I focused, almost overly focused on it, was my snottiest, most uncomfortable runny nose year I've ever had, and really with a decent amount of discomfort and trying to adjust that. So the strips are great. Breathe Right, those strips can help. And a doctor has once said to me, and I'm sure there are plenty of doctors that know better, everyone has a little bit of on the spectrum of some kind of like deviated septum thing going on. We have to learn. It's like we're given some things. How much can we correct? And so I would still say don't be shy away from mouth taping, because that will help clear the passages and keep that erectile tissue just sort of engorged and fixing you up. So like that's the way to kind of manage that.
okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, so I wouldn't stray away from mouth taping.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.